Welcome to the Mental Health and the Struggling Artist podcast. I'm your host, Brett Copeland. All right, I am with my good friend, Justice Song, who's an actor, stuntman, Renaissance man. He's actually Zooming me with me right now from Japan.
Hello,おはようございます。
Nice. And one of the reasons he is Zooming me with me from one of the reasons he's Zooming with me from Japan is because it's been incredibly slow, the acting world, which is a great time for us to parlay this conversation into some interview questions I have for Justice, who's a very talented individual. You're an actor and a stunt person, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So let's start with your background career foundation. Can you start by describing your background as an actor and a stunt performer and how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I just started generally with looking for the right direction or foot into the industry, which kind of started with classes. So I kind of researched all the important, I guess all the not important, but I guess like the bigger well-known studios, and I kind of went and audited a lot of different classes and kind of found a place for myself where I felt like the teaching style and the community resonated with me as a person and as an actor. And from there, also, I started diving more into doing background work first. So a lot of extra work. You can go through like central casting or a couple of different other call services that they call it. For doing background work as well. And that kind of gave me a lot more insight and knowledge and perspective into the professional world, and in terms of how sets are run. But then, really, from there, I had to go with zeroing in and trying to get more experience as an actor, because I wouldn't say background work necessarily gets you um, a lot of experience or opportunity to act. So it was a lot of auditioning and booking like indie projects and like student films, and that's kind of how I got my start there. From there, I met people, and then I was kind of introduced and kind of uh, pointed in the direction of different specialized fields within acting, right, which would be stunts. Um, so I met a couple stuntmen, and they kind of referred to me to their community. So that community is pretty tight knit and pretty small. But once you start linking with the right people, you kind of start networking in a great way that kind of puts you in a circle and postures you to kind of start being able to utilize those specific skills. And again, going back to getting those skills, it's always finding a class, always finding the opportunity to learn and kind of hone your skills and your craft.
Very cool. And it sounds like there is really no roadmap. This is kind of something that you have to just unlike, a job where you start, at the bottom of the corporate ladder and work your way up and it's pretty cut and dry. This is a landscape with no roadmap.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no roadmap, and there's also no timetable. Right? You get to a conventional, like you said, like a 9 to 5 or like a corporate job. Then even like with like a military career or a career in like law enforcement um, or a first responder or anything like that. You have your time and grade. You put the work in, you put the time in, and you promote. But at least there is like well, I don't like using this word because it kind of puts the perspective of an artist and their endeavors in a questionable perspective. But like I said, there's stability in like a 9 to 5. So that's the word I don't like using. But there's stability in a 9 to 5 in a corporate job and a corporate ladder. Because you go in, you do your time, you make money, and after a certain time, if your results and performance are astounding, then they'll promote you, right? But and it's pretty linear in that respect. I think for actors or artists, you're looking for your opportunity. You're trying to make your own opportunity, and it's not necessarily linear. It orbits. You have to find the doors that are open, and you have to find the places where you can put your foot through the door. And kind of just it's tough because I feel like it's a combination of, yes, you have to work your hardest and you push out your best, and you network well, and you have to give your best performance, but a big part of that really is luck of the draw, right? Whether you met the right person, whether you network correctly, whether you were right for the role that you auditioned for. It really is, I guess, a very dynamic career. I guess that's the best word to put it.
Yeah, that's a good way to frame it. It's very interesting. Now, let me ask you something. Earlier in your career, how consistent was the work compared to now? Have you noticed major changes in pay rates or job availability for stunt performers and actors?
Yeah, I mean, let's see. I started back in 2000, like 16, 2017. And background work was super consistent. They were always asking and looking for people. A lot of independent films were a lot more abundant. There was a lot more auditioning going on. And this was right before like COVID, right? So there was everything was always in person. I mean, rarely you would have a self tape, and that's only because they needed something immediately overnight, or they needed you to. They were shooting off. The location was somewhere else, right? In a different city. But though you would always call it, you always get called in. And even just looking on, Actors Access or what is it? You look at LA Casting. The number of projects that are put out, even commercial projects, PSA projects. It's almost like it's been cut down by like 80%, right? I think the only thing that is currently that there is a lot of is this new form called verticals,
Right.
um, and they're basically the only ones that are kind of like consistently shooting. But even with that though, it's such an interesting thing because you have industry professionals who are and like actors who work consistently, who advise against doing anything for about like work with verticals. But there is weird. It's a catch 22 because there's money in that, right? But it's such a different and new format, and it's such a young and in its early stages that it's not refined, and it's not something that is, I guess, most working actors would say reputable to your career, right? Something that you would want to put on your resume. Um, but that's like the bulk of what's being displayed on um, most of the work that's available right now. So I don't know. I think it's a very interesting time for actors in general, I guess.
Yeah. These short-term contracts, that are happening now, streaming shifts, shrinking budgets, as we know, the budgets have plummeted. Um, they've affected the way you sustain a career in film and television. And I need to ask, have you had to take non-industry jobs to stay financially stable between these projects? And if so, how does that impact your sense of identity as an artist?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, for me, the I have I've had to take on, several different day jobs or trying to find something that's flexible enough. And, what's rough is even I have friends and fellow actors who are a lot more successful than I am. Um, they have they have what I would say is more of a stable career within the industry, and they've also had to pivot or look for a day job or pick up, some sort of I guess to say it for lack of a better word, side hustle, right, in order to sustain themselves. And even going back to doing background roles or like auditioning for like day players or things like that, and they're struggling. I'm struggling. It really makes for me personally. I'm still in it. This is the career that I want, but um, realistically, I'm having to look at having to build another career at the moment in order to sustain my pursuit for acting as well. Um, just because the lack of I feel like, and I say this very carefully, but I think the last strike, right, that these major strikes that we just went on, um, has deeply impacted the majority of the industry for the worse, not the better. Um, and a lot of people are saying, "Oh, let's hold out because now it'll get over the hump and it'll like clean out these these kinks and these bumps on the road and these kinks in the chain." But it's not happening, right? Like we're not seeing more work being put out or better rates being negotiated. Obviously, SAG rates have stayed the same, um, if not a little worse because the budget cuts, right, and thereby the competition for the available jobs is shrink as well. And so I know a lot of us are hurting. And I know a lot of new people trying to get into the industry. It's almost not going to happen right now. If you weren't established in that upper successful level, like, you know, I don't think it's very plausible at the moment to be able to get to that. So they say working actor um, circle, just because you know they have the ones making the jobs right now, the ones making the projects that have the budget, that have the filming, the ones that are doing it, they already have their inner circles, they have their go-tos, they have the names that they're all attached to projects, and more or less, it's just even the background work, right? It's not there's the difference between being non-union and union, and at the moment, I think they're not even. It seems super rare and unlikely that they'll taft hardly anybody or bring anyone on into the union if you're not union already, because they already have their saturated um, pool of talent to pull from that are union, right? So I think for me, I've realized, yes, it hurts, but the best way, at least for me, that I'm going to be able to pull out of this is looking for the opportunities and making my own opportunities, and surviving that way in this industry. And I think a lot of um, friends of mine and actors that I know of that are of the similar mind have that same perspective, right? The ones that are also that have been working in they are integrated into that, again, that circle of success, right? They work regulated with like the streaming platforms, the bigger production companies. It is like, yeah, we kind of have to start pushing out our own projects just to stay alive in just to keep that heart beating within this
Right.
industry. Yeah.
Well, when you talk about creating your own projects, that brings me to another subject of AI and technological disruption. Um, the rise of AI generated stunt doubles, digital body scans. Have you seen technology begin to replace or reshape what you do? And what are your What are your thoughts about these long-term implications for AI and performers?
Yeah, I think that's a very hard question because we have to look at it very realistically. And so I've dabbled with AI and I've seen what it can do, and it is an amazing tool, um, to say the least, in all facets of, not only just in content creation or filmmaking or music making, right, or anything artist related, but even your day to day, even programming and things like that. Um, but yeah, we have to look at it from a very realistic perspective, and that realistic perspective is, if you look at what's caused the industry to change so far, it is the audience, right? Because acting, filmmaking relies on an audience. That is your customer, your consumer base, and with the rise of things like TikTok, Instagram, social media, Snapchat, right? The way that social, like just media in general, is consumed changed a lot, which is why, in part, I think these verticals are starting to kind of take off because it kind of adheres to this new um, generation of audience and how they consume content. And also, and then on the flip side, we're talking about creators and influencers. They create and generate. You call it user generated content, right? And so that's what's deeply affected the film industry, I think, um, whether people want to admit that or not. And so, in certain cases, you could say that it's either lowered the standard of content consumed, with things like such as like TikTok, YouTube, Snapchat, right? Um, and they just, this new generation, the mass, they just don't really care.
Yeah,
And
they
I
don't
say
know
this
any better.
carefully. Yeah, they just don't care. They don't know any better for the value and the hard work that goes into the art of, the art itself, right, of filmmaking and whatnot. So you'll get people who are like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. AI is awesome. It's not a big deal. Like, this is cool. This is entertaining. I'll watch it, right? And unfortunately, where I see AI is taking um over the industry is like things like virtual effects, editing, right? There, you're able to do a lot um with AI in terms of those parts of the film. Obviously, things like acting and character development, it's getting good, but it's still nowhere near like a real performance, right?
Right. But there is a time where it could just be three people in a room who do the entire film, right?
Exactly, yeah, exactly. So
Well, even now, like you say, extra work, you've done extra work, but even now they're not, am I right when I say part of the strike was that there's a percentage of people whose jobs are replaced as extras by AI. Is that correct?
oh, for sure, 100%, because even on the I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. Well, I'm an extra, and the film's coming out anyways. uh well, even the Michael Jackson film that's coming out, they asked for volunteers to be scanned, right? And those volunteers went. Like, they just thought, oh, is this, that, and that. And I was only interested if there was going to be a pay bump, because I was like, okay, maybe that's a way, you can get like a union voucher that way. And um, there was nothing, no sort of that. They just make you sign something like a release form, and I was like, oh no, that's straight up AI. Um, and yeah, they scan you, and so they can replicate you using AI, and AI will replicate a lot of background actors and scenes, right? So that way, that's at the fraction of the cost of like not even a fraction, like it's like a microscopic fraction of the cost of what you would
Right.
have to pay to fill a scene with like 300 background actors when you use AI just to generate them all, right?
With
Um,
perpetuity, I presume too.
yeah, 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 and the same is happening with, like, text to speech, right? They're taking a lot of voice actors And instead of having people record full-on audiobooks or different um, projects or segments of text or copy, right? What they'll do is they'll just take now, how people save money is, they'll audition certain actors, voice actors, and this is, I guess, this is deeply frowned upon in the industry to do text to speech AI voice over recordings because what they'll do is they'll pay you a buyout upfront. They take your voice, they replicate it, so then they have the rights to that voice indefinitely, unless the contract says otherwise. Unless the company is a little bit more in tune with industry standards, they'll be like, okay, this is like a contract for like 2 years, and then we'll re up if we decide to continue to use your voice. But then that's it. There's no
Right.
residuals. There's no royalties or anything like that. And that's the hugest pushback for right now for the voice acting world. So most people are like, yeah, it's like, and this brings me back to my original point. It's really the heart of the artists right now that are fighting against AI because it's really taken away from original creativity and originality, and well, I guess it's the same word, same concept, and hard work and ethic and talent, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't disagree with them, right? I definitely don't disagree, and they're like, we'll never use AI, we'll push back, and yes, that's true. Like that's the art of filmmaking. That's the magic of filmmaking. Like you can't like you shouldn't use the majority of the film to be generated by AI because people have been they've been experimenting like that, right? Filmmakers have been so quote unquote certain filmmakers have been using AI to generate the majority of their film just to see if they can, and some of them can. Like they come up with some crazy stuff. Um, but I think again, it brings me back to linking to that, the audience, right? And that they just don't care, they don't know better. It's you got to find that middle ground. I think that if you use AI, use it respectfully in a way that gives you gives you that streamlines your workflow. I guess I don't want to say like competitive edge or a lot more effective because that sounds like it's disregarding the heart of the artist. But I think you really have to find that compromise because again, the audience, the consumer base, they don't know better. They're not going to change their minds on that, right?
Mhm.
And so, if you're going to survive, it's like you can't keep riding the same, you know, tiring horse, right? Or the same term they say, you can't beat a dead horse, right? I don't want to say that artists that are completely against AI are like doing that. Um, but I think there is a huge commentary and dialogue that we can have because as an actor, as a creator as myself, as an artist, it is like you look at it like this. We do have egos, right? We have our own value system and standards that we place upon ourselves, right? But to what point is it valor? Is it respect? You know, um, or is it just stubbornness? Because the reason why I bring this up is when things like TikTok, YouTube were first starting out and starting to gain traction, I myself as an actor turned down a lot of opportunities for those um, for projects on those kind of platforms just because I thought it was not the way for an actor to go. Right, to say the least, I thought it was lesser content, right? Or I guess kind of to put it more blunt, like beneath me as an actor to do like skits or things like that. But look where it's gone. You know, it's been accepted as content itself. Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. They even have like Snapchat even has like their own production. Like you have YouTube TV. You know, and so it's just. with this push and pull of like adding in AI and like the different streaming platforms and the the technological discord and nuances that you mentioned, it's I think it's we just got to survive, you know, and whatever best way is going to put us there, to keep us afloat. I think that's and it's kind of understanding where is my pride in this, where is my ego in this, and then what values am I truly compromising as an artist and a creator, right? So for me personally, I don't mind. I think the tools that come with AI, like helping to edit or create visual effects or things like that, as an individual creator, right? Or like a team that's on a small. I mean, that's because we don't have the same budget that you would with, like, for example, like Warner Brothers Universal Studios, right?
Right.
Um, but would I use AI to completely create like a new character and supplement an actor or things like that? If I couldn't find a character or someone to act that character out, maybe. But that's the thing, right? I'm sure if you tried hard enough, you would find the person willing enough to, play that character that can be that character. So there's no excuse in that, right? Um, so I think it's just, I think it's subjective, and it's tough. Like that's just where I see it, from where I stand. I know
Right.
a lot of different actor friends of mine will have a different perspective or opinion on that, but that's just what I think.
Okay, well, let me ask you a question. I only have a few more minutes because the Zoom only lets me record up to 40 minutes. Throughout all of this, as a two-part question.
Yeah.
Have there been, and I'm sure there have, moments of burnout, self-doubt, or even questioning whether it's worth continuing in the industry? And what daily habits or routine help you stay grounded and manage this stress and uncertainty?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. There's been a couple times where I tried to walk away. Even when I'm not making enough money or breaking into the next level, I haven't considered, just pivoting altogether and going to a different career entirely. But for me, it's just me personally. It's just ingrained in my DNA. I never feel more alive reading a script, bringing a character to life, being on set, being on camera. And that's just something I know that's always going to be a part of me and something that I can't walk away from. You know, and you just got to remind yourself, it is, it's interesting, right? Because people say, oh, this isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. I actually disagree. I think it's everything, right? You have to, yes, the key term here is marathon because they say you have to stay consistent and you have to keep pursuing your goal. But, I think there are times where you're going to sprint. I think there's times where you're going to, coast. You're going to, you're going to pace yourself. I think there's times where you're actually going to have to walk back. You might have missed something or you need to take a step back or you need to take a different, route or walk around something. But if this is something that you love and you want, and it's a part of your existence. At least it is for me, my identity. I'm gonna stick with it. And a lot of different things that help me ground. This is, I personally myself am Christian, so what helps me is my daily prayers, my quiet time, meditation. You know, um, a lot of people
Exactly.
these days like to use this word manifest, and I don't disagree with that. I guess my version of manifestation is just that meditation of breathing and kind of assessing where I am, what can I do next, what goals do I have, you know seeing what next project can I do, or what kind of project can I create, right? Which I think any creative artist can, or any artist can benefit from, is just creativity, right? So whether it's reading over script, reading a book, relearning the lines, watching a film, but not watching it because you enjoy it, but really both enjoying, but you're also watching the techniques. You're studying it, right? It is, you're coming back to a place of study, right? Um, even your exercise. There's so many different things that benefit not only you as a person, but really benefits you as what kind of artist, what kind of creator do I want to be, and creating that schedule and the tools that I need to become that. And that just becomes part of my daily schedule.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, Justice, it was, you're very articulate, talented young man, and it's inspiring speaking with you. We met on set, we hit it off immediately. I always admire people who are really serious about their craft and talented, but friendly as well and lighthearted. And you possess all those qualities that make you magnetic, charismatic, and a superstar. And I appreciate it. I really appreciate your time very much. And
No, thank you for the kind words, and thank you for interviewing me. I don't know if I had a lot to share, but again, same right back to you, brother. I really appreciate you. It's really hard to find people who are just as passionate and talented, but also grounded and I guess the right word is self-aware, right, and considerate of others. And I'm really glad to have met you as well. Um, and we got big things coming for us, so I'm excited.
amen. All right. Thank you.